My topic is, does exposure to media violence increase an individual's likelihood of engaging in violent behaviour? The paper is by Sawyer, Drummond and Nova 2015, Violent Video Games, the Effects of Narrative Context and Reward Structures on In-Game and Post-Game Aggression, from the Journal of Experimental Psychology Applied. The relevance. Exposure to media violence is sometimes shown to cause increased aggression. This study attempts to identify some of the specific conditions that increase post-viewing aggression. Potentially intimate identification of player to character in violent first-person shooter video games makes it reasonable to think this medium might increase aggression more than other media types. Rationale. Previous research suggests sometimes found that violent video games increased post-game aggression, but causal links and mechanisms of how this happens are not clear. Generalized aggression model, or GAM, attributes the increase to the generalized activation of aggressive schemata. Game characters don't operate in a narrative vacuum. It seems, and the role of in-game reward structures have not really been investigated. So it seems that including protagonist motivation would be a reasonable thing to the authors. The aim was to ascertain the impact, if any, of game features on players' in-game and post-game behavioural aggression, specifically the narrative context such as character history and motivation, and performance-based reward structures. The hypotheses were that 1, in-game reward or punishment for aggression will increase or decrease post-game aggression, and 2, that narrative context would impact on post-game aggression. Use of heroic characters would reduce post-game aggression, while anti-heroic characters would increase post-game aggression. The participants, there were 155 in total, 98 female and 57 male. They were aged between 18 and 53 years. 108 were first-year undergrads, 53 were unspecified community members, and the ethnicity or the location of the experiment were not specified. Methodology. Prior to playing a violent first-person shooter game, participants were put into one of 6 cells or conditions. They read a character biography. It was either heroic or anti-heroic. Participants were told their performance scores were linked with the number of people they killed, so that 2 cells were told they would be rewarded by fewer numbers killed, and 2 were told by greater numbers, whereas the 2 control cells or conditions were not told any of this. DV of in-game aggression was measured by number of bullets fired, and the DV of post-game aggression was measured by a wasabi test that was modelled on an earlier Fisher chili test. The participants were told the wasabi test was unrelated to the experiment, that it was market research. They were allowed to administer as much wasabi paste as they liked to an unknown person who would subsequently consume the paste, and this is after they had been shown the unpleasant effects of wasabi paste. Findings. The reward structures were found to affect in-game aggression. Specifically, players in the punish aggression condition fired significantly fewer bullets than those in the reward aggression or control conditions. Now, the narrative context alone was found to affect post-game aggression with a small to moderate increase. Conclusions. Increasing in-game violence, as evidenced by bullets fired, does not necessarily increase post-game aggression. Game mechanics can increase or decrease post-game aggression without affecting the actual in-game violence. The mechanics underlying the effects were consistent with social cognitive context effects, but the GAM's assertion was not supported by the study. Limitations were centred around aspects of the sample design, as far as I could see. The overall sample was not at all representative of the broader violent or first-person shooter game playing population, which significantly compromises the ability of the study to be relevant or to generalise. The sample was skewed to 18-year-old undergrad females. Under 18-year-old boys were entirely absent. More than half of the sample had never played video games of any kind. It was not stated how many played violent video games of this half, and only 18 out of 155 had played the actual first-person shooter game in the stimulus. The division into cells was unequal on gender and amount of game playing, with some cells having game playing average twice that of other cells. Ethnicity and location of the experiment were entirely unspecified. More than 5/6 of the sample had never played the game before, which was used in the stimulus, and would add unspecified confounding variables. And my references: Sawyer, Drummond, Nova. I believe I don't need to read these out, but I'm meant to show you the page.